Hey everyone, and welcome to another video. So in the last episode, we started working on, or at least we kind of finished up working on this little desert area that we have over here. So we built the restaurant, we built the office building for the employees over here, and we changed up the coaster. So right now there's one issue left with the coaster, and that's that the block brake is not working very efficiently. So I will have to change that in the future, though I'm gonna keep that like it is for now, because I'm not quite sure yet how I want to do that yet. Though for this episode I kind of wanted to do something very different. So first of all, I want to finish up a few things, because I noticed that, for instance, on the office building I actually am missing a few of the poles, as well as that I would like to finish the tunnel for the backstage area. That will be going under the path here. So we'll fix up a few little bits and bobs every here and there. But besides that, I actually want to go to a different side of the park that I would like to work on for this episode. So let's actually go there. So for the remainder of this episode and the time lapse that we'll start seeing in a little bit is that I would really like to work on the parking lot. Now, I've been thinking about this for a little while now, about how to tackle this and how to make it work efficiently. I've started drawing up some ideas, and I think I have a pretty good idea of what I would like to do. So instead of having this path that curves to the side here, what I would like to do is actually continue the path going straight. And then around here, we'll have a little plaza with a shopping district slash... just a little district with shops, restaurants, and that sort of things that people can go to once the park is closed or they go home. And before they go home, they can just get their shopping done, go out to a bar to drink something before the night ends, or even just eat outside of the park if they really want to. A lot of large theme parks tend to do this, so I figured why not actually try that as well. So with the shopping district being right there, we also need to have some other transportation options. For instance, or at least I would really like to have a monorail, because monorails are kind of cool. That's really the only reason. They're not very efficient, but they can look really nicely. So I figure we can make the monorail just go over the path here, have a monorail station above the path or kind of to the side of it. Then here at the bottom we can probably make a bus station. Then on the other side of the monorail we'll probably do the rideshare and taxi area. And then the rest of this area, of this corner that we have left, we can fill that up with parking lots and whatever infrastructure comes with it as well. And I think that covers all the bases that we need, because that way we have the transportation to get around the resort using the monorail or the buses. We have the transportation that you need to get to the resort, which would either be by buses or by rideshare or taxis. And on top of that, we also have the cars for either people who are staying at the resort or who are coming to the resort from the outside. So from the parking lot, we'll also need some roads that can go to the other areas around the park, where we'll later be building some hotels and other things. We still have to see what we're exactly going to do with that. We just have to make sure that we have the infrastructure for that in place, so that we can actually extend upon that later. So that's the idea. I'm not sure yet how far we'll get with that in this episode, but I think we can get the main infrastructure done and kind of planned out. And we'll see how far we can get in this episode. Anyways, that's enough talking with nothing actually happening. So I would actually like to welcome you guys to Magic Towers Resort, and let's get building. Alright, so you better have a drink and some snacks ready, because this is going to be a long one. So I actually just noticed that these videos are getting longer and longer. We started off with 10 minutes, we're now at 25 minutes. So I expect about within a month we should be at an hour. Anyways, like I said in the intro, I first wanted to really quickly finish a few things up. So one of these things is the Backstage tunnel that I was talking about. So I'm really quickly working on that here. And a quick spoiler alert, I was also saying that we would be getting to a lot of the other infrastructure things at the front of the park as well. Yeah, we don't get all of that done, actually. I ended up spending way more time than I was expecting on one of the builds. Actually, two of the builds. I had to throw some stuff out. In the end, I was building for about 3 hours. More like 4 hours. And I figured, well, that should be enough for an episode. Let's actually keep it at this. So just so you know, not everything that I promised will be in this, but a lot will be. And it's really gonna start taking shape. I'm saying all of that because I don't have a lot to say about this tunnel. It's pretty basic. We just make it look like concrete on the sides, add some support beams, and then of course from the pedestrian path, we also have to make sure that the guests don't actually notice the tunnel being there. So you might not actually notice, but a lot of parks actually do this sort of thing where they have a road going under a little bit of path, and then they just really simply just hide it with some plants or some theming around the bridge. So you might not even notice that there is a bridge going there. One really big example actually is Phantasialand. Phantasialand actually has a public road running straight through the park, which is crazy. I didn't notice beforehand, but once I looked on Google Maps afterwards, I was quite surprised because it's just going straight through the park, and it's fixed by some tunnels and paths going over it, and it's completely hidden. It's really well done. Anyways, enough about Phantasialand. Here I'm building the monorail station. First, I had imagined this monorail station to go over the path, but I couldn't really work something out that I liked. So I started over and started recording again, and now it's on the side a little bit, just because I would like it to have a bit more of a solid base instead of just archways going under it. So this monorail station isn't really themed in a particular style. I did take some inspiration from Walt Disney World, of course, because they are one of the only parks with a pretty large monorail system running through the resort, and it actually has a proper function as well. So yeah, I'm just keeping this pretty generic while still kind of using the materials that I've been using for the Main Street area, and some materials that I'll be using in the next little section as well. Because once I have the monorail station built, I will actually get started on an entertainment district. So a lot of parks tend to have, or at least a lot of large parks tend to have some kind of entertainment, dining and shopping experience once you're done at the theme park. Especially if you have hotels and things like that, it really makes sense to be able to entertain your guests throughout the evening, even after the park has been closed, or when the guests might not feel like being inside of the park as well. You have to think about that as well. So I can name a few examples of parks that actually do this. First of all, we have Walt Disney World, which has Disney Springs, which is a really well-themed, shopping area, basically. It has shops, it has restaurants, it feels pretty luxurious, it has its own music loop. It's a really interesting place to be at, because it's a mix of both Disney and these just normal store brands coming together to create this experience, which is pretty nice. Another example, Disneyland Paris has Disney Village. It's a bit smaller, but they kind of achieve the same thing. Another one, City Walk at Universal Studios Orlando, which is a bit more aimed at the younger target audience. So they really target on teens, young adults mostly, I think. So it feels a bit more modern, I'd say, a bit more city-like. It is called City Walk anyways, so it has a lot of bars and clubs and things like that going on. And once you get out of the park at the end of the day, you really get the vibe of, okay, I can really go out here and have a good time tonight if I would like to. I haven't been to Orlando yet with friends. My first trip was alone, sadly. But if I do get back there, I'm probably gonna spend the night there at some point, because that sounds pretty cool. Anyways, that's what we're gonna be building in this episode, or at least gonna start building, because this area is gonna be pretty big. I figured we could get pretty far in this episode, but we really only get started with the first row of buildings that we're gonna build for it, with some shops. Anyways, though, the monorail station is about done now. As you can see, I'm making the monorails go over the path there, get them closer together so it's cheaper to support as well. And from there we can take it to the other hotels and destinations that this resort is gonna have in the future. So here I wanted a plaza. So the idea here being that before you actually get to the parking lot, you will have to go through this through this entertainment district, which is, of course, I mean, the oldest trick in the book. People don't have a choice. They are gonna walk past this, and as long as they're not too tired, they're probably gonna check some shops out while they are here anyways, right? That's the general way these kind of things tend to work. So I'm applying that same kind of strategy here, because that's what realistically a theme park would like to do. Now, if you've seen some plans for theme parks that probably haven't been built, but there are a lot of concept art for theme parks that were planned to be built, you'll notice that most theme parks that are being planned right now always incorporate this kind of entertainment district right in front of the entrance. And that's, of course, because it is just a very big profit maker, if I were to guess as to what the reason why is. Anyway, so I'm getting started with some buildings here, two pretty nice little archways, which will lead into the rest of the entertainment district. But this entire building that will be kind of placed around this plaza will be in a sort of, I've written this down, yeah, there, Spanish colonial revival kind of style. Reason being, well, my reference images for this little project were from Disney Springs. And Disney Springs, when you get to that from the parking lot or from the bus stop, you walk into the area, that's kind of the first style that you're met with inside of Disney Springs. So it has a pretty luxurious look to it, a lot of windows that let you look into the different stores that they have there, but they kind of remain the same theme throughout the entire street, the same architecture, the same colors, but they just make it interesting by using different shapes to kind of tie it all together. And then, of course, with some vegetation and plants and to really make it look nice. So that's what I'm going for here as well. So you'll see that this entire building will use the same colors, will use the same materials, but we are going to try to make it interesting by getting these shapes to really make it look like different buildings that are attached to each other, which should happen to have the same colors and the same materials, because they were probably built at the same time if there was more of a story behind this. So over there you can see me build a diagonal window. So Wontera or TPM actually pointed out to me that was going to be possible, and the way you do that is by just making the land dip in a little bit. It's really just an optical illusion, because you can actually place the glass walls, even the full height glass walls, you can place them on a slope. So if you place two of them in the slope downwards, away from the camera, then it will actually look like a diagonal wall. And this is just an optical illusion, but since you're only you can only see a diagonal wall from one angle if it's inside of a building anyways. So that's actually fine, and that actually works really well. So that's actually what I'm relying on there to get the diagonal window in there. And then, of course, behind that we can just place some props to make it look like there's more inside of that building. So we're getting to the end here on the right side. So I'm just trying to appropriately end the building there by just kind of making it fade away into some vegetation. Of course, from the monorail station, the building can still be seen a little bit, but it will be obscured mostly by some vegetation, so I can keep that pretty simple. So on the other side, we are not gonna actually copy what is going on already, because I did figure at this point that it was a bit too symmetrical already, so I kind of need to break up the pattern just a little bit. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm just making a little shop over there again with some large windows to really show what the wares are inside of this shop, and then I'm making it come out just a little bit to place a larger building on the side there to again end the building on that side as well. And then on the corners later on, we'll just build some smaller shops, some smaller drink stands or food stands, just to kind of fade out of this pretty heavily built zone, basically. So here again, I'm using the curved roofs, but that's really because I didn't have another choice. Because I am gonna keep this building a sharp angle, which is in contrast to the other side, of course. So that way I'm kind of trying to make it a bit more unique. So this entire building is technically actually just one building. As you can see by the roof, it's all just the same height, and the roofs are only really there as a facade. They don't really have a function. So here I'm building a small little stand. I would imagine this stand to sell maybe hot dogs or some smaller type of food that you would just some, you know, some fast food. If you're just hungry and you are on your way to the parking lot, you can just grab a quick snack here. So the path that you see next to this little building there is actually the path that is gonna go to the parking lot. So that's also what I mean by the guests actually having to go from the entrance through this area, you know, to try and convince them to come into the entertainment district before actually heading home. However, I'm not actually going to take them through the tiny streets or the smaller streets of this entertainment district, because that could possibly pose some safety issues at the end of the day when the entire park is actually emptying out into the parking lot. We do need to have enough path capacity to support all the guest flows as well. So that's something that we want to keep in mind. Though we do have a pretty large plaza here, so I put a little fountain in the center as the centerpiece of this area, and I think it ties it together really well. So yeah, I think we can kind of continue this theme, the Spanish colonial theme, throughout the rest of this little area. And I think that also kind of ties together with the main street as well. As I said earlier, that does have a bit of Mediterranean kind of style. So this is a very loose link, but Mediterranean, Spanish colonial, so they went somewhere else, and that has then be revitalized, and that's how we got to this kind of architecture. Anyways, it kind of has the same kind of cue, so I think that actually flows nicely from one architectural style to the other, to kind of make a connection between the main street and the entertainment district. So here I'm placing a larger store because I really needed something to break up the patterns here. I realized that I was using the same kind of wall techniques a bit too much, so I figured we'd try something else. So over here we have a very large entrance to a probably pretty important store with large windows that let you see the multiple stories that this building has, just to make that a bit more interesting. Though on the other side, for now, we're just gonna copy the archway, but I don't want this side to be the same as the other. I know that on the other side of this building, we do actually have the same thing going on both sides, but here I really needed to break up the pattern again. Since we have the parking lot on the the top right as of right now, it might actually be nice to have some things to kind of hide the parking lot here, if this is going to be its own area. Especially if I have restaurants going on later on in the future, you don't want to look into the parking lot. So this might actually be a nice point to put some backstage stuff there. Again, just some garage doors, which I'd imagine to be very useful if you have to resupply all the stores that are here. And we can just kind of hide that with a little wall and some vegetation with some trees and things like that as well. So now we only have the corner here left for this building to finish. And I figured that we kind of do the same as the other side, but on a grander scale. So this is going to be a lot of windows to look into the store. And of course a lot of diagonals as well to make it look interesting. And very large entrances for the store. I'm using the gong scenery piece there because if it is behind windows, it kinda, with some imagination, it kinda looks like clothing racks. Okay, so like I said, just use a little bit of your imagination, but I think that's kind of what it looks like. So that's what I'm going for there. That's why there are so many gongs in the side of the store. I don't think this area will actually have a gong store. Anyways though, so yeah, I'm again creating these large entrances with some windows above it as well to really make it have an open feel. So especially when it's day, you have a lot of light shining into the shop, and I think that's really what you'd want if you have a shop here. I did find this corner here a bit too boring still, so I figured why not actually put a little tower on it as well. At this point, I do have to admit, with all these towers like that, and these round bits, it kind of feels like Batuu in Star Wars Land at Disneyland, Anaheim, and Disney World. But that's as far as the connection with Batuu goes, but that did kind of remind me of it. On the other side, it's also time for a little shop there that probably sells some food. Again, the guests are gonna walk past this store with 100% certainty when they want to leave this area, unless they take the monorail, by the way. So it might be a nice place to just sell some kind of cheap food that they can just take with them on their ride home if they are still hungry but don't want to spend the night inside of the entertainment complex or entertainment district. I'm not sure yet what to call it. So, as I said at the beginning of the video, we also need a bus station. So, I wasn't quite sure how to fit it in at first, but eventually I moved the monorail a little bit, and that gave me a pretty large space to put just a few bus stops. So this bus station will be able to have about 4 bus stops. It's not a lot, but at the same time, Magic Towers Resort, as of right now, is not the size of Disney World yet. So I don't think we need like 12 different bus stops for all the different locations that you can go to. So I think 4 will be fine for now. And maybe in the future we can expand it if we really need to. But for right now, this is fine. So here I experimented with something that I haven't done before. I raised the path up by one in-game unit. It's interesting though, because if it's next to a normal path, the guests can actually walk on it, but it just gives a very small height difference, which is ideal for things like stations and bus stops, because it's just a very minor height difference. So of course we want a rain cover as well, just a simple roof on top of the building. This is where I started experimenting and eventually found that these support pillars that are going kind of diagonally kind of look pretty nice as a support for the bus stop. So that's what I went with in the end. To get around streets though, I am gonna have to rely on the monorail, because as of right now there aren't a lot of good ways to get more organic roads in no custom scenery Rollercoaster Tycoon. So if we want some nice curves, we'll just rely on some monorail track to get those curves in there, and then we just kind of spam with some bushes just to fill it up and kind of hide the fact that the path is actually sticking out on the other side, which I think is fine. But we're already at the end of this very long video. So let's not make it any longer. And I would like to thank you guys again for watching. And I hope to see you guys in the next one. Anyways, make sure to like this video if you liked it. And have a nice day. Bye bye.